Every journey you take today, in hours, once cost weeks, months, and sometimes life itself.
This is the story of the machines that moved humanity and changed the world forever.
Things you've never seen, now revealed.
This is how the world moves.
You complain about a 3-hour flight. You complain about 40 minutes of traffic. You complain about a crowded subway. It's fine, we all do it. But stop for 1 second and think about this. Just over 100 years ago, crossing the world didn't cost you hours. It cost you months. And very often it cost you your life. This channel is about the most invisible and most powerful force in human history. Movement. The machines that lifted humanity out of one place and carried it to another. And in doing so, changed everything we are. Sit back, because this is the great journey.
Let's start where it began, in fear. Picture yourself standing at a harbor 500 years ago, looking at a small wooden ship, a caravel, about to sail into the open ocean. No one truly knew what lay on the other side. Many feared what lay beyond the known horizon. And yet, men climbed aboard those ships and sailed straight into the unknown, with no map and no guarantee they would ever come back. That is how the Portuguese reached Brazil, how Spaniards crossed the Atlantic, how the world, for the very first time, was connected end to end. Every continent on your map today was tied to the next by people brave enough to sail into the dark.
And if the caravels connected the continents, it was the great steamships that moved the peoples. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, millions of people made the hardest journey of their lives, leaving everything behind to cross the ocean for a new life. Through Ellis Island alone, the gateway to New York, more than 12 million immigrants passed. But this was no cruise. Those without money traveled in third class, packed into the bottom of the ship, in a place called steerage. They could spend up to 2 weeks down there, seasick, in the dark, in the stench, dreaming of a land they had never even seen.
And for some families, the crossing was far, far longer. Many who came from Europe to South America spent more than 40 days at sea. Japanese immigrants who traveled clear across the world could spend months inside a ship. And on board, falling ill was a terror. A contagious disease could spread through the whole ship, and those who died during the crossing were buried at sea itself, far from home, far from everything. Think about the courage that took. Months on the ocean, not knowing if you would arrive, knowing a single fever could cost you everything. This is the root of millions of families scattered across the world today, perhaps even yours.
While ships crossed the oceans, on land a machine was born that would redraw entire nations: the train. And here is a number that's hard to believe. Before the railroad, crossing the United States from one coast to the other took months. You went by covered wagon, facing mountains, deserts, and rivers, or you took a ship all the way down around the tip of South America and back up again. A single journey could cost nearly $1,000, a fortune back then. Then, in 1869, 2 sets of rails met in the middle of the Utah desert and completed the first transcontinental railroad. Suddenly, that journey of months took less than a week.
And it wasn't only speed. It was the railroad that, quite literally, colonized the American interior. Before there were roads, it was the train that carried entire families to distant, harsh places where almost nothing existed. Where the tracks arrived, towns were born. Where they didn't, the map stayed empty. Around 21,000 workers, many of them Irish, Chinese, and formerly enslaved men, built that line with their own hands in brutal and dangerous labor. The railroad made the United States grow into a vast, connected nation. Which is why you can say, without exaggeration, the train didn't just carry people, it drew nations.
And each of these stories, the caravel, the immigrant ship, the railroad that built a country, deserves an entire episode of its own, told in full detail. And that is exactly what we're going to do here, one by one. But first, we need to talk about the day that moving things from one place to another decided the fate of the entire world.
Because transport didn't only move people and goods, it moved armies. And in the greatest war in history, the Second World War, it became clear that winning wasn't only about who had more soldiers or more weapons. It was about logistics. Who could get fuel, food, ammunition, and troops to the front line at the right moment? An army without supply simply stops. That's why one of the most decisive strategies in any war is to attack the enemy's transport, to destroy their railways, their bridges, their supply lines. Whoever broke the other's logistics broke the other. Wars were not decided only on the battlefields. They were decided on the rails and the roads that led to them.
And then, in the 20th century, came the machine that shrank the planet for good, the airplane. That crossing of weeks by ship, which our great-grandparents faced with dread, became a flight of a few hours. A person in one continent in the morning, in another by night. For the first time in history, distance stopped being measured in months or weeks and started being measured in hours. The world, already linked by the caravels and shortened by the trains, now fit inside a single day of travel, and it became so common, so ordinary, that we forgot what a miracle it truly is.
And just when it seemed we had conquered every distance on Earth, humanity asked the next question. What about off the Earth? For decades, leaving the planet was absurdly expensive. Between 1970 and the year 2000, putting just 1 kilogram of cargo into orbit cost, on average, more than $18,000. The space shuttle could cost over $50,000 per kilogram. It was so expensive that space was an exclusive club only for superpowers. Until one idea changed the game. What if, instead of throwing the rocket away after every launch, it could land back down and be reused like an airplane?
In December of 2015, for the first time, the first stage of a rocket came back and landed upright on Earth, ready to fly again, and the price collapsed. The cost of putting a kilogram in orbit fell from over $18,000 to just a few thousand, a drop of more than 90%. It became around 30 times cheaper than the space shuttle, and suddenly space, which had been a club of superpowers, began to open up. It's the same story as always, only now pointing upward. A new machine drives down the cost of moving things, and what was impossible becomes routine. Humanity is doing to space exactly what it once did to the oceans and the continents.
Now step back and look at this whole story from far away. From the caravel to the rocket, it's always the same plot repeating itself. A new way to move appears. It's expensive, difficult, and dangerous at first. Then it gets cheaper, faster, safer. And when that happens, it doesn't just change the journey. It changes history. It decides which countries grow, which cultures meet, which families are formed, which wars are won. Transport is the invisible skeleton beneath everything humanity has ever built. We almost never think about it, but it is what carried the world all the way here.
And that is exactly why this channel exists. Here we're going to tell these stories, one by one, in detail. The courage of the caravels, the suffering and the hope of the immigrant ships, the railroad that built nations, the logistics that decided wars, the airplane that shrank the planet, the rockets now opening up space. Because every single time humanity found a new way to move, it took a leap that changed everything. And to understand how the world moves is to understand how the world became what it is. That's why we look in detail at how the world moves.
Now tell me in the comments, which of these stories do you most want to see first in an episode of its own? The railroad that colonized a continent, the ships that carried our ancestors, the rockets making space cheap. Write it down, because you're the one who picks what comes next. And if this great journey moved you, leave a like, subscribe, and share it with someone in your family, because this story is the story of all of us. Welcome to the channel. This is How the World Moves.